Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's exam time again. I am Karina from the Matura Express, and together with my partner Timna.
Hello.
You heard the voice from the off. We will be doing a trial exam or 2 trial exams on education tonight. Noble. SU. So that was her, like, you know, the girl.
That was me, yep. Oh, here we are.
The girl in the picture was her. So the most important person of tonight, because on exam days I'm not as important. Those of you who had a look at our stream last week know what the topic is all about. It's about school. I tried to give you some unit vocabulary last week, so words that you can work with when dealing with the topic of school and education. I was also trying to give you some input on what schools were like in the past, also kind of preparing for today's exam, because that will be one of the bullet points in the first exam. Which leads me to the exam, actually. I think we're gonna go straight into the matter. I'll show you guys out there the exam paper. So, well, school and education is the topic. It's the same for both. As always, she, in this case, will be asked some questions, or she will be talking about her career, future plans, reasons for the A-levels, like, you know, as most of you are doing the A-levels, or some of you, besides school, it's also important, besides work, sorry, it's also important to know why you do it. Like, you know, you could be home instead watching English series or something, instead of, you know, being in class. Why is there 2 screens? That's weird. Well, standard exam task in history class. The history teacher told you something about what school was like in the past and how lucky or unlucky, I don't know, depending on the viewpoint, I guess, we are that we live in the 21st century and have gone through the school system we have gone through. You thought it was very interesting and that it would make a good topic for a presentation because you have to hold one in English anyway, in English class anyway. So you did some research into the topic. First off, it will be her task to talk in a monologue. How schools have changed over the past, say, I don't know, 50, 100 years, depends on how much research you did, how much you know about what the school system was like, also what your materials tell you. I guess it also depends on how much extra information you were able to gather on the subject. The value of education in Austrian society, how important is it? Is the Matura minimum requirement nowadays? There is a good many ways to do the A-levels, even though you did not like go through classical schooling through, I don't know, grammar school or Hakhatel, whatever. There are alternative, non-traditional ways, which I would like her to describe. Of course, we always also have to have a look into other school systems. There is a text about the education system in the United States, which I think is slightly more complex as we don't know that much about the system, I guess. And we always only hear such terms like upper high school and freshmen and whatever, because that's what they usually tell us in movies. So there's a text about the American system, and there is a picture, which I thought was really nice because there's such nice keys in the picture. And I think it's quite well structured about the English education system. So that's what it looks like in most, or in like the greatest part of the British Isles. Of course, Ireland, Scotland and Northern Ireland do have differences. So that's more or less what it is like in England and Scotland. But there is some regional differences. So that's the information for the English education system, and after that we're gonna talk about school and education in general. A couple of questions on the issue. Are you ready?
I am. I think so.
Well then, I hope you have prepared a fake identity, as you always
Of
have.
course, I have.
So, welcome on this quite late night Matura task.
Thank you.
Would you mind quickly introducing yourself, please?
Of course. My name is Susie, and I am a trained beautician. And actually, I'd like to do my A-levels because I feel like with A-levels, I would have more job opportunities. I would get a job more easily and just have more freedom in maybe choosing what kind of job I would like to accept.
Sounds good. How's the beauty business going?
It's going quite well.
Going
yeah.
well? Going
Yeah,
well. Well, I guess beauty is always something
Definitely.
worth
You
investing
always
money in.
need that, definitely.
So, yeah, fits the topic quite well. You have picked or chosen the topic school and education. Because you know a lot about the topic.
Yes.
You're quite well informed because of your history teachers. Could you maybe point out some differences to like what it was like in the past in your, I don't know, in our grandparents' generation and what we have to go through?
Well, I feel like school has changed quite a lot, but then again, maybe not that much. So what's definitely different to, let's say, 50 or 100 years ago is that there's less or I think no physical punishment. So not that long ago, you'd actually be able to, or as a teacher, you'd actually be able to punish your students by, I don't know, hitting them or doing all kinds of crazy things to them. And that's, thankfully, nowadays that's not permitted anymore. That's illegal, I think, everywhere. I'm not sure, but at least in Europe and the US, I think as well, it's definitely illegal. Of course, what you can do still is, I think you still can like send people out of class and like tell them, if they're younger, tell them to go stand in the corner. I'm not sure, but I think that's still kind of okay since you're not really physically harming them. But yeah, I feel like that's the most important change. What else has changed? Of course, the subjects have changed a little bit. There's different materials nowadays that are talked about, maybe some less than others. But otherwise, in Europe at least, school is quite the same, I feel like. And if we look at Austria and Austrian society, we can see that over the last years especially, it has become more and more important to have a higher education and at least to have the A-levels. Because of course you can just do an apprenticeship and learn a job basically, but still then those who have the A-levels usually will get a better job or will be chosen first, which is something you definitely want to consider when you are thinking about not doing them. So I think at least having the A-levels is really, really important in our society, which I'm not sure if that's a good thing, because we do need all those professions that don't necessarily require higher education. We do need all those, and just because you don't have the A-levels doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're like from a lower class, or that you're, I don't know, that you're not, that you're worse, or that others are better. So that's something we need to keep in mind or to think about, in my opinion. And what else has, or something else that's been getting more and more popular in the last few years is definitely alternative forms of schools. So schools where the students have more freedom, where they can choose what they want to do more, instead of just sitting in a classroom with 30 other students listening to a teacher talk about the same subject, I don't know, for 50 minutes. And so those schools are, for example, Waldorf schools and Montessori schools. Yeah, exactly. And what I actually want to say, I was kind of a bit going off topic here, but well,
That's okay.
yeah, it's something that's just very, very interesting to me. So what I actually wanted to say as well is that you don't always have to go to school to have the A-levels. So nowadays you can, as I am doing right now, you can do the A-levels next to your job. You can go to courses in the evening and do the exams like that. You can also do them alongside your apprenticeship, which is often a bit better because it's cheaper, or at least cheaper for the one doing it, because usually the what am I saying? The one you're working for, your employer is usually paying for that. So that's something that's maybe better for the one that's doing the A-levels. And what else? Yeah, you can also do, if you really want to go to university, but you don't have time to do the A-levels and do all of those classes and so on and so forth, because it does take quite a lot of time. You can also do an exam that will then make you that will then give you permission to study a specific field. So I think you have to choose what you want to study, and then you can do this exam for that. So you then can't really change into a different field, but yeah, if that's what you want to do, you can definitely do that as well. So there's lots of different ways to get the A-levels, since they're so important here in Austria. And that's really the main thing that I wanted to tell you today in this presentation. So do you have any questions?
Not really. You pretty much covered everything that I wanted to ask. So yeah, there seems to be a good many.
Yeah. I was kind of a bit all over the place.
Oh, that's fine. Now I have a broader picture of what it is like. You mentioned that the A-levels are sort of important. Mm-hmm. Has it always been that way, or was that a recent development?
I think it is definitely a recent development, because people, of course, want their children to have a good job, to have a good future, and in our minds that's usually linked to having a higher education, because then you get a better job which pays more. But yeah, I feel like that's something we really need to change in our mindset.
So you're not the biggest fan of having to have the qualification if you're good at your job? Is that what
Exactly, because every job is just as important as the other, and we need all of our jobs to be done, even if they're even people who take the trash, and even people who, I don't know, clean. That's all just as important as a doctor or a lawyer, and that's, I think, something that
you say
forget.
Kind of puts unnecessary pressure on the people who
exactly,
kind of have
because
to.
There are also people who don't really like to study.
It's true.
People, yeah.
I think there's a good many of them out there somewhere. Yeah.
Who are just better with their hands, and that's okay. That's perfect.
Do you think that the Austrian system compares to the English and the American one, or what is the English and the American one like? Actually.
Actually,
I don't see that many parallels, but
no, there's really not that many parallels. The only thing is that in each of the three systems, you usually have an exam at around 18 years that then qualifies you to go to university or college. But other than that, the UK and US school system are quite different to the Austrian one. They themselves are quite similar, as in you're more free to choose kind of the subjects you want. They're more creative subjects. It's more kind of interchangeable and not so fixed on, I don't know, one way or one path. Which is good, I feel like. And it's also, it's definitely in the US, that's the case. I think in the UK as well, you have to go from classroom to classroom. So from teacher to teacher, and the teacher doesn't come to you. Which is kind of nice, because then you get a bit of circulation. You walk around, you have to bring all your stuff and not forget anything and so on. So that's quite a nice thing.
It is quite nice, actually.
Yeah,
That's true. That's true. What time do you guys in Austria start school? Like what age kind of thing?
We start around 6, or maybe 4 to 5 if you count in kindergarten. But that's more like playing and not really like school. The real school starts usually around 6.
Okay. Starts later than, like, in England it would be proper school. Like if you went to kindergarten, it would be kind of, you would be able to do the maths and stuff.
Yeah. But here it's not that much. In kindergarten you really just play and have fun, and it's basically just so that your parents can work and not kind of have to be with you all the time.
Okay,
I feel like that's the way.
That sort of makes sense. Yeah, I guess that's kind of...
Yeah, and of course you do kind of, by in all those games and playing, you do learn things as well, and you of course also learn to interact with other children and so on, but it's not really like solving a math problem or something like that with 4.
Do you have, like, in the picture on the school system of the United Kingdom, it says something about public schools and state schools? Do you have these differences, or this difference in Austria as well?
Yes, we do. Yes, we definitely have private schools. We have private schools and then I guess public schools, which usually the private schools are better, or at least are said to be better. But then again, you have to pay for them. So so that's, I think, quite similar to the US and UK. Yeah.
It would just be, the name giving would be the other way around kind of thing. We call them public, or people in the UK call them public schools, but then they're private, which doesn't really make an awful lot of sense. But still, is it a fair system that you have to pay for school? Should schooling be, like Austria propagates free access to education for everyone?
That's quite hard to say, because there is a free option. It's just not the best option.
Okay.
So you can do it for free. You can also pay to have a better education, which is kind of a difficult topic, because not everyone can really afford that. And so you would kind of have to think that it's not the same chance for everyone. Or what do you think about that, actually?
Well, I guess I'm with you on that, but then I guess if you get good value for the money, I can kind of understand the parents' point of view. Like if they can't afford it, they'd be like...
And it's also not like in the US, it's not like thousands and thousands of dollars. It's okay, like you can afford it if you want to.
I guess it's, I don't know. It's like, if the parents really get what they paid for, and if it's really good education, I suppose you can...
But then again, like at such a young age, how do you know like what you really want to do?
That's
and
true.
then paying for something that you're not really that interested in. True. Yeah, for
good
the
point.
parents. Yeah.
Good point. I never thought about it from that angle. Yeah. Do you guys pay for university down here?
We pay a small fee of, I think, 20 euros or something for, I don't know, just general, what's the word? Yeah, we do pay about 10 euros, but
Okay,
that's
well.
it. So it's free.
Tell a person from England or from Ireland that you're only paying 20
Yeah,
euros, and
they're quite
guy will be
jealous of
like
that.
all over the
Yeah.
place, like, okay.
Definitely. Yeah.
Which like add 1,000 in especially Ireland.
We're quite glad about that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Do you, like, last question, as we are running out of time already, would you think that the Austrian school system is good? Like, if you had to give it a grade, like if it was classic school grade, 1 to 5? I guess there's always room for improvement in all the school systems, I suppose.
I think I would give it a 2 to 3.
Okay.
Because I feel like there is quite a lot that can be changed and can be changed for the better. For example, having more of this kind of choosing yourself more and having more different kind of creative subjects and all of that. But that's always quite a quite hard discussion to have.
That's true. I would not be the one for the creative subject. I would, no.
I don't think I would either. But then again, you can choose. Like you can try it. It's just the.
I think that's what I like. That's what I like most about the American system. Yeah. That you can kind of pick what you want to do. I would just kick out math, physics, and chemistry and be like, be stuck with all the languages like that. That'd be totally fine. Okay, if that was it from your side, that was it from mine. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Here we are. Yeah.
There we go. So let's have a very quick analysis of what you just did. You know that there is 4 categories that you will be kind of judged on, if you want to call it that way. In your A-levels, time is up after exactly 15 minutes. That's what I was trying to do as well. Interrupt her, so you do not get any extra points for like talking and talking and talking. That's not the plan. You should be able to kind of limit the amount of information that you get from the text to like a 15 minutes time span. What I was trying to do now, like the time on my computer screen is quite small, but we were doing quite well, I think. Let's have a look at the first point. In this case, it was the task achievement, which was very, very good, very well done, especially in the monologue part. So she touched upon she touched upon all the bullet points that there are. So the changes in the school system. This is not a knowledge question in that sense. It's just what you know about the topic. I don't know, old stories that your grandparents told you. Like the book that most of you guys use has like a paragraph this long, so that doesn't give you that much information. So there's a lot of room for like interpretation. She did talk about ways of like punishing pupils, punishing students. She could have also mentioned that it probably was just a stricter concept on the whole. It was the teacher who was kind of ruling the classroom, whereas I think today's approach is more like kind of the teacher as the trainer, kind of mediator kind of thing. But I think it's getting a lot like less strict. Value of education in Austrian society, she talked about that as well. Was of course a quite guided question, like the way I asked was kind of like steering her in the direction of like then engaging into a discussion about whether or not you really have to have the A-levels, or if that's a good thing or a bad thing, something for you to, I don't know, make up your minds about. A question that you could also raise in the topic, because there should be some interaction going on as well. You also mentioned the non-traditional ways of reaching the Matura university without A-levels, so kind of like showing you that it's out there, informing me about the opportunities. Education in the UK and the US was the dialogue, the conversation. Well, I guess it is a quite big topic to talk about in the very limited amount of time that we have. She focused on some of the key aspects. She also did ask some questions, which was really good, because as it says, dialogue, conversation. Conversation implies that it's going back and forth between two people, so there was questions asked, which is always a good thing. We didn't really talk about the infograph that much. So those of you who like to, or who always need something in their hands, who like to have a text to hold on, or a visual to hold on to, you could also pick some points and describe it. I don't know, say that what is particular in England is that the year 12 and year 13 kind of have a special name in schools. You get also treated like in the boarding school that I was in. If you were in year 12 and year 13, you would also be like the oldest pupils in the school, in the boarding school, and you would get kind of like some kind of special treatment, and you'd be like a bit more privileged kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, we talked about the public schools and the state schools, which I guess is the biggest difference between England and Austria. There's not that many private schools, even though we both went to one, but then there is not that many of them. We do have state schools in most parts, but the private schools exist in Austria. In England, public schools are very popular. Many big boarding schools, all the like prestigious ones, the most successful ones, are all private schools, or public schools as they call them. Yeah, we did talk about that as well. You can look up the statistics in the internet. Just do a quick Google search. It will give you the picture. So that was definitely like she would get high points in task achievement because we or she did cover all of the most important aspects. Range of vocabulary and accuracy, I hate that word, of vocabulary was good as well. She was trying to use good vocab, so vocab that is B2 level that we should all have when we take our A-levels. Yeah, I think that was it for the first exam. Are you ready for the second one?
I am.
I'll show your audience out there what to expect. Same layout as before. School and education is the topic, so by only looking at the very first headline, like next to question paper, there will be no big like information. So this time it's about alternative approaches to traditional schooling. As you probably all know, there is two very, very famous alternative approaches to schooling. Came up a while ago. They're both quite old, I think, where people were simply trying to take out like a bit of the pressure that is usually put on pupils. I think especially the Montessori approach is very much against pressure, especially in primary schools and also in kindergartens. As we discussed beforehand, I've heard that there's kindergartens that are kind of mini schools where it's like really competitive and where kids have to kind of know their maths and being able to like write at least some letters of the alphabet. That's at least what I've heard. So that was the starting point, I guess. People were trying to find something that has a more playful approach, a more individualistic approach to the topic of education. So I think that's the foundation that both Waldorf and Montessori share, whereas their realization of their ideas is different. I think we have comparatively many Waldorf schools. I know many in Innsbruck and surroundings, so the Waldorf approach has become quite popular, even though there are some restrictions to the whole thing. I think you still can't do your A-levels and your final exams, university entrance exams at a Waldorf school because that's they're not partaking in the in the Zentralmatura thing. They don't have any final exams. So there's still limitations, but I think Waldorf is quite popular. I don't know that many Montessori schools, but pretty sure there are some. Let's have a look. This time we chose a more personal approach to the whole thing. So your brother is a student in a Waldorf school, which makes you, as the exam taker, an expert on the topic. Again, you had to pick a topic for a presentation in English, and you think it's quite interesting because your classmates don't know much about it. They know that your brother kind of attends a school that is not a regular school kind of thing, but you kind of set yourself the goal to inform them about it. But so as to be able to talk about alternative approaches, you have to briefly explain the Austrian standard system. So when do we start school? At what age do we have to decide which school to go? What are the big exams? What are the requirements for university? Just, an introduction to the topic in general. Problems and downsides of the Austrian school system, if there are downsides, according to you. I personally think that we have to pick quite early, at the age of 14. We have to know whether to stay on in gymnasium or go to the hotel, maybe go to a boarding school, because there is no, the type of school that you want to go to is quite far away. There's many different forms. I think trying to explain the Austrian school system to a person from England is usually quite an endeavor, because there's not that many types of schools there. We have hotels, hacks, tourism schools, nursery school, or schools that focus on pupils becoming a nursery teacher. So there's a good many things that we can choose from. Then reasons why Montessori and Waldorf were invented in the first place. Why were they needed? So I kind of mentioned or kind of answered this question already. Then, of course, because your audience is curious, they want to know more about Waldorf and Montessori. You have a text. It's a comparison of Waldorf schools and Montessori schools. So what do they have in common? Where do they differ? I think it's a quite good text on the topic. It gives you a lot of information should you be interested. Also, of course, your own knowledge, because your brother goes to such a type of school, so you are the expert on it. Be prepared to meet with some skepticism from your audience, so probably there will be questions, especially about the exam aspect. So how do people learn to take exams, to work under pressure, if there are none in at least the Waldorf schools? I don't think Montessori schools have exams that, in the sense that we know, either. And school and education alternative approaches in general, the follow-up discussion, but that normally evolves out of the discussion anyway. Are you ready?
I am ready as ever.
Do you have yet another fake identity?
I have.
You have so many multiple personalities. That's the new personality showing. Well, let's see who she is now. She has changed from Susie to
Sarah.
Yeah. It's the S day tonight.
Exactly.
Sarah, welcome to your English exam.
Thank you.
Is it your last exam? Do you have German and English already?
No, it's my last exam.
It's your last exam.
Quite eager to finish.
I hope English and I hope German and math went well.
Yes, it went okay. Yeah.
What are you doing with your life if you're not sitting in school studying?
I am a carpenter, actually.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. And as I'd really like to open my own carpentry shop in the future, I think I'd like to take some business classes maybe at university, so that I really know what it's like to have your own business and to look after it and so on and so forth. And that's why I want to do my A-levels.
That sounds like a fantastic plan.
Thank you.
How's competition in the carpentry business?
It's not that bad. The thing is that there's not that many professional carpenters anymore. There's more and more big companies, like some Swedish companies in Bern who sell furniture, which are of course a very big threat for us small carpenters. But then again, there are still people who need their furniture to be exactly measured, and individualized, and that's something only we can do. So, yeah,
sounds like a very nice job in general. I would be terrible at it because coordination and the eye for detail. But it sounds like a great job in general.
Some talent, but
well, which I definitely wouldn't have. So your brother has chosen a quite different career path to you, because he goes to a Waldorf school.
Yes,
and that's why you know more about it than probably most people do, as you have first-hand experience. Yeah. But then, if you were asked by a person from the UK, for example, or the United States, how would you describe the Austrian school system in like a few phrases?
Well, in general, Austrian children start school at around the age of 6. There are 2 years of kindergarten before that, but that's not really school. That's more like playing and games and fun. So in general, you start at the age of 6, and if you want to go to university, you have to go to school until the age of 18 and then do the A-levels. There aren't that many exams except for the A-levels. In Austria, it's not like in the UK where you have an exam at 10 and then another at 15 years. So that's really not how it is here. What you can definitely do is finish school at, I think, 14 or 15 and then do an apprenticeship. So go on with your career like that if you want to do that. And that's really the basic thing. Of course, if you do the A-levels, then it makes quite a lot of sense to then go to uni and study. So go on to higher education. And that's really the main message about the Austrian school system, which of course has its highs and lows, its positive and negative sides. I feel like a few negative factors of the Austrian school system is that first of all, you have to pick quite early what you want to do. So even at around 10 years, you kind of have to know what you want to do, because then from then on, that's where primary school stops and you go on to a different school. And you have to choose whether you want to go to regular school and then do an apprenticeship, or if you want to go to a school based or that specializes on languages, or one that's more on about math and business and all of that, and there's also ones that are more about arts or all those kind of professions, so cooking, creative, everything that's to do with being creative and more with doing something actually with your hands. So it's quite hard actually to pick that early, I feel like, because then again, what if you change your mind? You kind of have to start all over again. Yeah, and also there's so many different types of schools actually in Austria. There's like the general school that that everybody can go to, but that ends then at, I think, 15. Then there's new middle schools, as they're called, which are quite a new form, and nobody really, or at least I'm not quite sure about them. Like what are they really for? And then there's of course the private schools, or the schools that you go to for 8 years, which then lead you or 9 years even, which then lead you to the A-levels, and some even provide you with kind of they train you for a job. I'm sorry, I'm a bit all over the place right now, but yeah. So it's quite a lot to choose from, and it's quite hard to do that, which is really a negative side about the Austrian school system. And that's also where Montessori and Waldorf schools come in handy. So those are two types of schools that are more kind of free, they're more alternative, yeah. And you can choose more what you want to do, you can choose your projects, you can kind of work more creatively. And so it's not that important, like that you're choosing like this path and only this path, but you can kind of experiment, which is really nice. And which is also getting more and more popular, especially in Austria. And yeah, of course there's positive and negative sides to those alternative forms of schools, But yeah, that's really something that has to be discussed, I think. So are there any questions?
Of course, there are always questions. The A levels, like you mentioned, the A levels at the age of 18, usually. So, and that you don't have that many exams during your school career. So the A levels would be a live or die exam. You either pass them or you don't.
Exactly.
Okay. Do you have the chance to repeat them if you fail?
Yeah, you do. I think 3 to 5 times. I'm not quite sure. I can't really remember, but you can definitely.
You can definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, that would be quite harsh, to like have one and then it's like end of story.
Yeah.
that'd be terrible. So basically, you said something about having schools for people where they learn to cook and so on and so forth. You have to decide at the age of 14 then.
Yeah.
If you want to do. Okay.
Yeah.
That's quite.
Even earlier sometimes.
That's quite early. Like
Yeah.
Knowing whether or not this is that would be definitely something that would have put me into like a very different difficult place.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what about Montessori and Waldorf? How do they, like you said, they're more experimental and they're kind of a little bit more artsy kind of thing. Anything else that we have to know or should know about them?
Well, they actually, I'm not quite sure, but I don't think you can do the A levels in either one of them. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
Because they're so free and creative and so on, they don't really have that concept of like math classes or English classes.
Okay.
Which is why they're actually, I think, more popular just for younger children, especially primary school, and then the first 4 years after primary school. I think it's quite popular for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means that if you go to Montessori school or Waldorf, let's take either as an example, you don't have any exams really, do you?
I don't think so. I'm not quite sure, but I don't think so. I think it's more kind of just going on and learning more for yourself.
Okay.
Not really.
Is that a good thing? Like we live in a society where we have to take exams all the time. We take hundreds of exams in our lives.
I think it's fine for, as I said, for younger children. But then at some point you do kind of have to do exams, because if you want to go on to university, you kind of have to get used to doing an exam and having that sort of pressure. So I think it is quite important to also learn that. But as for young children, like I don't know, age 6 to 10 or something like that, I think that's fine. That's perfectly fine. So
you would say that, like, obviously, or what you told us beforehand was that your brother goes to such a type of school, so it's fine for him now that he's quite young.
Yeah.
But
I think later on he will change to a regular school.
Why did your parents send him? Which aspect of the Waldorf Montessori approach was?
I think they just wanted him to not really have to take a certain path and think a certain way from the beginning, but start school by kind of building his own opinion and being creative and thinking about things his own way, instead of having an opinion forced onto him maybe by school, which can be can happen quite often.
That's probably true. Yeah. Definitely criticism that you could raise about the standard school system, really. Can you, like, obviously there's many schools, I can't think of the word, there's many schools to choose from.
Yeah.
In Austria, many different approaches. Do you have something like counseling in primary school where you get tested on like what your talents are, or would somebody actually tell you, well, you're a very creative type of person, maybe you should go to such a Waldorf school because they are pretty creative? Is that something that you get told, or is that something that your parents have to decide?
I think it's something that usually your parents have to decide. Of course, they can also talk to I don't know, teachers, if you already have teachers, or to people who are watching you maybe. But I don't think there's tests for that at that age.
So you just figure out by yourself,
exactly,
kind of thing. Okay, well, quite hard. It's like a challenge for parents, and
yeah, it is.
Are you in favor of kindergartens getting more competitive, but do I really have to be able to know the alphabet at the age of 4?
I don't think so. I think you have to kind of still let the children be children and let them have fun and learn kind of by playing and by interacting with other children and by having all those kinds of games that do kind of teach you important life lessons. That I think that's more important than being able to like solve a math problem at 4.
Well,
right. I don't know.
Well, maths is an important thing. Would you send, or would you recommend Waldorf and Montessori as kind of an approach that is a little less like pressurized kind of thing?
Yeah, I definitely would. Definitely, as I said, for the beginning of your school life, it's definitely a very, very good start.
Okay, but you went through regular schooling, I take it. So, do you sometimes envy your brother for all the freedom that he has that you didn't?
I often think about how my life would be had I gone to like a Montessori school or a Waldorf school, because I think it may be different. I'm not sure.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think schooling, like, you're pretty young at that age, so I guess it does something to you regardless of like what type of school you chose. Yeah, I think that was all that I wanted to know from you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in the picture concerning the Austrian school system. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And good night.
Good night.
I don't know if good night is an like appropriate conclusion after A-levels, but as it is that late already, it is definitely. Let's see what we have. As always, the analysis is based on like the 4 criteria, or the analysis would be based on the 4 criteria. Task achievement was there as always, especially in the monologue part, which I think is easier to evaluate and also easier to like stick to the bullet points, because you have to talk about them. They are formulated in such a way that you can't really avoid them. I guess if I see the bullet points, then I just talk about them really. As the setup of task 2 of the dialogue, like the layout of it, keeps it very open. What do you want to talk about? As I said, like I keep repeating myself in exam advice, basically. If there is stuff that you like, the text, I don't think that I can actually show you the text now, because it probably doesn't let me open the text. No, it doesn't, which might be up to my like bad computer skills too. But anyway, if you look at the text, it gives you a lot of information on both systems and also on the differences. Talk what you feel most, like prepare in such a way that you know that whatever you, or that you can kind of steer the dialogue in a direction that you want it to go. So if you happen to be the type of person who really likes to stick to like keywords and stuff, then, or if that's easier for you, write down as many keywords as you can about the different possibilities that you have. Like, I don't know, a column for Waldorf, a column for Montessori, basic ideas, basic systems, whatever. Or you can also focus on the differences, kind of assuming that your audience knows what you're talking about, sort of, and say, well, yeah, whereas Waldorf has, I don't know, exams, I don't know, I don't think they do, but just as an example, you have some mini tests, Montessori doesn't have any, or whatever. Or you have teaching, I think in one of the approaches you have teaching material, like a set standard booklet of teaching materials, and others you don't have any materials. So that's differences that you could point out. take advantage of the fact that the dialogue part is open, very like formulated in such a way that you can talk about pretty much anything you want, and hope for nice questions of your interlocutor. Yeah. Of course, task achievement was there, so was the vocab and the accuracy of the vocab. Yeah, I think that's all that is there anything on my fantastic keyword sheet? Nope. That's all that I have to say. Oh, one thing, I jot down the word longer and I only remember now what I wanted. The monologue part was longer than the 3 to 4 minutes that are scheduled. This exam actually doesn't give any time frame. My mistake, I'm sorry. But the monologue was considerably longer than you would have, or that it would be in your real exam. The thing is that in the real exam you would be interrupted after time's up, so that would be, a nice introduction, being like, yeah, can we change to a different topic? Because I didn't want to do that because there's a lot of inputs for you topic-wise. So don't be surprised, or just bear in mind that her monologue in both exams, I guess, was longer than it would be in the real exams. But I guess it's not a bad thing to give you some additional ideas, like stuff that you could talk about. Maybe we mentioned something in our exams that you haven't thought of and that you could include into your notes and then talk about it in your own A-levels. Yeah, I think that was it now, definitely. So I wish you a great evening. Do something for your English skills. Watch some series in English, whatever you do, at 10 o'clock at night. See you next week. Thank you very much.